The smoke from Taiho's pipe swirled up toward the ceiling of the small tavern. The old alien sat hunched at his table, his purple skin now faded and wrinkled with age. His three eyes, once sharp and clear, had grown cloudy after years of seeing too much death. Around him sat 5 young cadets, their scales still bright and their eyes still full of hope. They did not yet know what war truly meant. "So you want war stories?" Taijo asked, his voice rough like stones grinding together. His translator device made a soft clicking sound as it turned his words into the common language. "I have fought in 17 wars across 30 systems. You must tell me which one you wish to hear about." The tavern was quiet tonight. Only a few other customers sat at distant tables, but even they seemed to lean closer when Taijo spoke. The bartender Garo wiped the same spot on the counter over and over, his 6 arms moving in perfect rhythm while his ears strained to catch the old veteran's words. "We want to hear about the humans," said Duri, the youngest cadet. Her antennae twitched with excitement. "Our teachers only tell us the official history." "But you fought them. You saw them with your own eyes." The other cadets nodded eagerly. They had all grown up hearing whispered stories about the terrible Earth warriors. Humans were now allies, but the memory of their violence still haunted the older generation. Taijo's breathing slowed. He stared into his drink for a long moment before looking up. "The human war," he said quietly. "I was there at the beginning. I watched my friends die by the thousands. I lost my arm, my eye, and most of my faith in a just universe." He took a long drink and set down his glass with a heavy thud. "It started 50 cycles ago. I was a young officer then, like you. Full of pride, full of certainty. We had just discovered the human home system and sent ships to make contact. We thought it would be like meeting any other species. Formal greetings, trade agreements, cultural exchange." Taijo laughed, but there was no joy in the sound. "We were fools. We did not understand what humans were, what they had become after fighting each other for thousands of years." One of the cadets, Jiwoo, leaned forward. "But our ships were more advanced. Our weapons were better." "How could they better?" Taijo interrupted. "No, different. We had energy weapons that could cut through most shields. We had gravity manipulators and faster ships. But humans," he shook his head slowly, "humans had been preparing for war since they first picked up sticks and stones." The old veteran reached into his pocket and pulled out a small device. He pressed a button and a hologram appeared above the table. It showed a massive ship, one of the old Imperial cruisers that had once been the pride of their fleet. This was the Emperor's Glory, the flagship of our first contact fleet. It carried 10,000 crew members and enough firepower to level a small moon. It approached the human colony on Mars with 2 escort ships. Standard diplomatic protocol. The hologram shifted, showing the great ship moving slowly toward a red planet. "We sent messages of peace. We followed all the proper procedures." Taijo's voice grew tight. "Then, without warning, without declaration, without any response at all, they attacked." The hologram showed small objects, barely visible, streaking toward the ships. "What are those?" asked Duri, pointing at the tiny streaks. "Metal rods," said Taijo. "Simple metal rods accelerated to near light speed. No explosives. No energy weapons. Just basic physics." The hologram showed the rods hitting the Emperor's Glory. They punched through the massive ship as if it were made of paper. Secondary explosions bloomed across its hull. The great vessel began to break apart. "Our shields were designed to stop energy weapons and explosives," Taijo continued, "not solid objects moving at relativistic speeds." The humans understood this. They had studied our technology from a distance and found its weakness. The cadets watched in horror as the hologram showed the destruction of all 3 ships. It happened so quickly, less than 2 minutes from first impact to the final explosion. 17,000 crew members died in that first attack, said Taijo. "I survived only because I was in a shuttle returning from the escort ship. I watched my friends die through the viewport." He turned off the hologram and the tavern seemed darker without it. "But why?" asked another cadet named Hana. "Why would they attack without talking first?" Taijo sighed. "We learned later that they had intercepted our communications months earlier. They had broken our codes and translated our language. They discovered our plans to establish a colony in their neighboring system. But that wasn't their territory," protested Jiwoo. "Humans don't think that way," said Taijo. "To them, any potential threat must be eliminated before it becomes real. They had watched our ships studying their system. They had seen our military capability, and they decided to strike first, before we could become a danger to them. The old veteran rubbed his missing arm, a habit he had never broken even after 50 cycles. After that first battle, our leaders declared war. We thought we would crush these primitives quickly. We had conquered 12 other species before them. We had the largest fleet in the known galaxy. Tejo's laugh was bitter. We sent 100 ships to their home system. 100 ships against their 30. We thought it would be over in days. He fell silent, lost in memory. What happened? Duri finally asked, her voice barely above a whisper. They were waiting for us, said Tejo. They had filled the approach to their planet with millions of small mines, simple nuclear devices attached to proximity sensors. Our fleet formation flew right into them. 20 ships destroyed in the first minute. He took another drink. Then they attacked from hiding places behind their moons. Their ships were smaller than ours, faster. They didn't try to match our firepower. They targeted engines, weapons, command centers, surgical strikes. Tejo's eyes seemed to look beyond the tavern walls, seeing battles fought long ago. Their soldiers boarded our disabled ships. That's when we learned what humans were truly capable of. They moved through our corridors like ghosts. They adapted to our artificial gravity instantly. They fought with a violence we had never seen before. But our warriors are trained from birth, said Jiwoo. How could humans defeat them in close combat? Because humans don't train for combat, said Tejo. They live it. Their entire history is warfare. They had been fighting each other for thousands of years, developing weapons, tactics, strategies. While we fought in organized formations with standard weapons, they fought like wild animals, unpredictable, creative, willing to use anything as a weapon. He pointed to a scar that ran from his forehead down to his jaw. A human gave me this with a piece of broken metal, not even a proper weapon, just a jagged shard he picked up from the floor. He killed 3 of my squad before I managed to shoot him. The tavern had grown completely silent. Even the few other customers had stopped their conversations to listen. Of the 100 ships we sent to Earth, Tejo said quietly, only 17 returned. It was the worst defeat in our history, and it was just the beginning of the war. He looked at each of the young cadets in turn. You wanted to hear about humans. Now you know how it started. But the true horror was yet to come. The cadets sat in stunned silence. Tejo's first tale of the space battle had shaken them. Their training had taught them that their fleet was the strongest in the galaxy. To hear of such a defeat was hard to accept. After our fleet's disaster at Earth, Tejo continued, our leaders made another mistake. They thought the space battle was lost because humans had the advantage of defending their home system. So they decided to attack the human colonies instead. He motioned to Garo, the bartender, who brought over a fresh drink. Tejo's hand shook slightly as he lifted the glass. I was reassigned to the ground forces under General Sunwoo. We targeted the human colony on Proxima Centauri B. It was their oldest off-world settlement, but still small, only about 2 million humans. Tejo pressed a button on his device again. A new hologram appeared showing a beautiful blue-green planet. We landed with 50,000 troops, the best warriors from across our empire. We had power armor that could withstand heavy weapons. We had walking tanks that could level buildings. We had air support that could rain fire from above. The hologram zoomed in to show the alien troops landing in massive dropships. The cadets watched with pride as their people's warriors deployed in perfect formation. The human defenders numbered only about 10,000, said Tejo. We outnumbered them 5-1. Our intelligence said they were mostly colonists with basic military training, not professional soldiers. He paused, staring into his drink. We expected to win within days. Instead, we faced a nightmare that lasted months. The hologram shifted to show the alien forces moving toward a human settlement. The buildings were simple, nothing like the grand architecture of the alien homeworld. The human defenses looked weak. The first attack went as planned, Tejo said. We secured the outer farms easily. The humans retreated to their main settlement. We thought they were running away in fear. His 3 eyes narrowed. They weren't retreating. They were luring us in. The hologram showed the alien forces advancing confidently toward the settlement. As our front line reached the first buildings, the ground opened up beneath them. The humans had dug tunnels under the entire approach and rigged them to collapse. We lost 500 warriors in seconds. The cadets watched in horror as the hologram showed the ground swallowing entire squads of troops. Then they attacked from hidden positions: windows, rooftops, sewers. They didn't fight in formation. Each human seemed to fight their own private war. Taijo touched his missing arm again. I led a squad into what we thought was an empty building. As soon as we entered, the doors locked behind us. The air filled with a gas that ate through our breathing filters. Half my squad died before we could break out. He looked at each cadet in turn. That was my first lesson about humans. They use the environment as a weapon. They booby-trapped everything, buildings, vehicles, even their own dead. That's dishonorable, said Jiwoo, his scales flaring with anger. Honor? Taejo laughed bitterly. Humans don't fight for honor. They fight to win, and they will use any method, any trick, any weapon to do it. He took another drink. After 3 days, we had lost nearly 10,000 warriors and advanced only a few hundred meters into their settlement. General Sunwoo decided to change tactics. He ordered our air forces to bomb the entire colony from above. The hologram showed aircraft dropping explosives on the human buildings. Fires spread across the settlement. We thought we had won. We moved in to secure what was left. Taijo's voice grew quieter. But the humans had gone underground. They had built an entire city beneath their surface colony. Tunnels, bunkers, hidden passages. A maze that they knew by heart, and we had to discover one deadly meter at a time. The old veteran's hands trembled more visibly now. They would appear from nowhere, kill a few warriors, and vanish again. They set traps that would activate days after being set. They poisoned water supplies. They used our own communication systems to send false orders. Dury leaned forward. But how? Our systems were encrypted. Humans are natural code breakers, said Taijo. They think in patterns and puzzles. What took our best minds years to develop, they could break in weeks. He switched off the hologram. After 2 months, we controlled only half the settlement. We had lost 30,000 warriors. The humans had lost maybe 3,000. General Sunwoo was replaced. The new commander, General Kwan, decided on a new approach. Taejo's voice dropped to almost a whisper. He ordered us to use biological weapons. A shocked murmur ran through the cadets. Biological warfare was forbidden by every civilized species. We released a virus designed to target humans only. It caused a slow, painful death over several days. Taijo closed his eyes briefly. I can still hear their screams. The tavern was completely silent now. But even this did not break them. The humans had prepared for biological attacks too. They had vaccines and treatments we didn't know about. And those who were infected, Taijo paused. Those who were infected would walk into our camps and detonate explosives strapped to their bodies. They turned their own dying people into weapons. That's impossible, said Hana. No species would use their own sick as bombs. Humans would, said Taijo simply. They value the group over the individual in war. The dying would sacrifice themselves to help the living. He finished his drink in one long swallow. After 4 months, we had lost 40,000 warriors. We controlled most of the surface, but the humans still held the underground. Our high command finally ordered a full retreat. We abandoned the planet entirely. Taejo looked at each cadet, his gaze intense. That was just one colony, one small human settlement, and it defeated our best troops. But how? Asked Jiwoo, still struggling to understand. How could they be so effective? Because humans have been fighting each other for their entire history, said Taijo. While we fought formal wars with rules and honor, they fought for survival. They developed a kind of warfare we had never seen before. He leaned forward, his voice dropping lower. But the worst part wasn't their weapons or their tactics. It was their minds. Taejo tapped his temple with one claw. Humans understood fear better than any species we had ever encountered. They studied our biology, our culture, our beliefs. Then they used that knowledge against us. The old veteran's eyes seemed to look inward, seeing memories he had tried to forget. They would broadcast the sounds of our young in distress over our communication channels. They would leave the bodies of our scouts arranged in ways that held religious significance, desecrations, that would haunt even the most hardened warriors. The cadets shifted uncomfortably in their seats. But the most terrifying thing was their laughter, Taejo whispered. During combat, some of them would laugh. Can you imagine facing death and laughing in its face? He shook his head slowly. Their soldiers had different names: Marines, Rangers, SEALs, each group with their own traditions of violence. They took pride in their capacity for killing. They celebrated it. How did we ever make peace with such monsters? Duri asked, her voice trembling. That, said Tejo, is the final mystery of humans. As terrifying as they are in war, they can be equally committed to peace, once they believe you're no longer a threat. He looked toward the window, where the stars shone in the blackness of space. But that is a story for another time. First, you must understand what happened when we tried to attack their homeworld directly, when we learned the true meaning of human warfare. Tejo shifted in his seat, wincing as his old wounds ached. The cadets waited eagerly for him to continue. Even Garo, the bartender, had stopped pretending to work and now stood openly listening. After our defeat at Proxima Centauri, Tejo said, our leaders were angry. They could not accept that a less advanced species had beaten us. They decided to strike directly at the human homeworld, Earth. He activated his hologram device again. This time it showed a beautiful blue planet with swirling white clouds. Earth, Tejo said softly. The human birthplace. A world of oceans and forests, deserts and ice. A world where life had evolved for billions of years. A world that had shaped the most dangerous species in the galaxy. The hologram zoomed in to show cities, roads, and the signs of human civilization. Our high command gathered the largest fleet ever assembled, 300 warships carrying 2 million warriors. They believed that such overwhelming force would crush human resistance once and for all. Tejo's eyes grew distant. I was promoted to commander after Proxima Centauri. They gave me a new arm, he tapped his mechanical left arm, and assigned me to the command ship under Grand Admiral Taeyang. We were confident. We thought we had learned from our earlier mistakes. He laughed bitterly. We had learned nothing. The hologram showed the massive alien fleet approaching Earth's solar system. We moved slowly, carefully. We checked for mines and traps. We sent scout ships ahead. We thought we were being smart. Tejo shook his head. The humans let us come. They waited until our entire fleet had passed the orbit of Mars. Then they struck. The hologram showed small objects appearing from behind Earth's moon. Thousands of nuclear missiles, said Tejo, not aimed at our ships, but detonated in space ahead of us. The explosions created an electromagnetic pulse that disabled our electronics. Our ships went dark. Our weapon systems failed. The cadets watched as the mighty fleet drifted helplessly. Then the human ships attacked. They had hidden their true fleet behind their moon. Not 30 ships like in the first battle, but hundreds. Small, fast vessels that could maneuver even without computer assistance. The hologram showed human ships darting between the larger alien vessels, firing weapons at point-blank range. They targeted our engines first, leaving us unable to move. Then they attacked our life support systems. Ship after ship began to lose air, heat, and gravity. Tejo's voice grew tight. I watched from the command bridge as our mighty fleet was taken apart piece by piece. Grand Admiral Taeyang ordered us to abandon ship. I made it to an escape pod with 5 other officers. He closed his eyes briefly. As our pod launched, I saw human ships attaching to our vessels. They were boarding us, just like in the first battle. But this time, they had a new purpose. Tejo looked at each cadet in turn. They were taking prisoners. A heavy silence fell over the table. My pod was captured by a human vessel. They brought us aboard and put us in cells. I expected torture, execution, or worse. Instead, they treated our wounds and gave us food and water. The cadets exchanged confused glances. The human captain came to speak with me. Her name was Captain Minji. She was small even for a human, but her eyes... Tejo paused. Her eyes had seen as much death as mine. He took a slow drink. She told me that I would be watching a demonstration. Then she showed me a video feed of Earth. I could see our remaining ships still fighting, still trying to reach the planet. Tejo's voice dropped to a whisper. Then the humans revealed their final defense. The feed showed thousands of objects rising from Earth's surface. Captain Minji called them ICBMs, intercontinental ballistic missiles. Each carried multiple nuclear warheads. The hologram showed the missiles streaking toward the alien fleet. In less than 10 minutes, half our remaining ships were destroyed. Hundreds of thousands of warriors died instantly. The humans had weapons powerful enough to destroy their own world, hidden in underground silos across their planet. Tejo switched off the hologram. Captain Minji told me something I will never forget. She said, "We've been preparing to destroy ourselves for over 100 years. Did you think we wouldn't be ready to destroy you?" The old veteran stared into his empty glass. Of our fleet of 300 ships, only 27 survived. Over 1.8 million warriors were dead or captured. It was the worst military defeat in our history. "What happened to you?" asked Duri softly. "I remained a prisoner for 60 days, said Taijo. "The humans treated us correctly by their own laws of war. They gave us medical care. They allowed us to observe their religious practices. They even let us communicate with each other." He rubbed his mechanical arm. "During that time, I learned more about humans than any alien had before. I watched their news broadcasts. I spoke with their soldiers. I began to understand what made them so different from us." Taijo leaned forward. "Humans don't have a warrior caste like we do. In our society, warriors are born and raised to fight. We train from childhood for war. But humans," he shook his head in wonder, "humans can transform. In peace, they are farmers, builders, artists, parents. But when threatened, every human can become a warrior." "That's not possible," said Jiwoo. "A farmer cannot become a soldier overnight." "For humans, it is possible," insisted Taijo. "Their history is full of such transformations. Ordinary humans taking up arms to defend their homes. This is why they are so dangerous. You cannot tell which humans are warriors until they start fighting." He looked around the table. "And they fight with a desperation we cannot match. We fight for honor, for glory, for the empire. Humans fight for survival. They believe, truly believe, that defeat means extinction, and so they will do anything to win." Taijo's voice grew softer. "After 60 days, Captain Minji came to my cell again. She told me that I was being released. A single ship of prisoners from each captured vessel would be allowed to return home. We were to deliver a message." "What message?" asked Hana. "Peace terms," said Taijo simply. "The humans offered to end the war. Their conditions were simple. We would withdraw from all human-claimed systems, release any human prisoners, and sign a non-aggression pact." "That's all?" Jiwoo sounded shocked. "After we attacked their homeworld, they didn't demand territory? Reparations? Technology? Nothing," confirmed Taijo. Captain Minji explained their reasoning. She said, "We don't want your worlds. We don't want your people. We just want you to leave us alone." He smiled faintly. I asked her why they were being so merciful. She showed me something on her data device. Images of Earth's history. Centuries of human wars against other humans. Billions dead. Entire cities destroyed. Taijo's voice grew heavy with emotion. She said, "We've seen where endless war leads. We've stood at the edge of our own extinction many times. We choose a different path now. But make no mistake, if you force us to fight again, we will not stop until your empire is dust." The cadets sat in stunned silence. "I delivered this message to our High Council personally," said Teo. "Many wanted to continue the war. They could not accept defeat, but the Empress herself overruled them. She had seen the battle reports. She understood what we were facing." He looked toward the stars visible through the tavern window. The peace treaty was signed 30 days later. The human war was over. We had lost 3 million warriors, hundreds of ships, and our belief in our own superiority. Taijo turned back to the cadets. "But the story doesn't end there. The true test of human nature came after the war. That is when we learned their most surprising quality, one that made them even more dangerous than their capacity for violence." "What quality?" asked Duri. "Forgiveness," said Taijo. "And that is what I will tell you about next." The tavern had grown more crowded as word spread that old Commander Taijo was telling war stories. Aliens of various species now stood around the edges of the room, listening intently. Garo had stopped serving drinks entirely, his 6 arms crossed as he leaned against the bar. Taijo took a moment to gather his thoughts before continuing. "The peace treaty was signed 50 cycles ago," he said. "I expected the humans would remain hostile for generations. After all, we had attacked them first. We had tried to take their colonies. We had used biological weapons against them. By all logic, they should have hated us forever." He shook his head slowly, still amazed after all these years. "Instead, 6 months after the treaty, they sent diplomats to our homeworld. Not soldiers or spies, but scholars, scientists, and traders. They offered cultural exchange programs. They proposed joint research projects. They wanted to establish trade routes. But why?" asked Jiwoo, clearly confused. "Why would they trust us so quickly?" "They didn't trust us," Taijo corrected. "They were cautious, careful. But they believed that peace was better than continued hatred. Their ambassador explained it to me once. She said, "Enemies can become friends, but only if given the chance." He activated his hologram device again. This time it showed a large space station orbiting a blue-green planet. This was the first joint human-imperial project, a trading station in neutral space. We built it together, 10 cycles after the war ended, humans and our people working side by side. The hologram zoomed in to show aliens and humans constructing the station together. I was assigned as security chief. Taejo continued. I still didn't trust humans. I watched them constantly, waiting for them to show their true violent nature. He smiled faintly. Instead, I saw them working harder than our own people. I saw them sharing their food, their music, their stories. I saw them learning our language while we struggled with theirs. The old veteran's eyes grew distant with memory. One day an accident happened. A pressure seal failed in a section where 5 humans and 3 of our workers were installing equipment. Emergency doors closed automatically, trapping them as air leaked out. The cadets leaned forward, caught up in the story. Our rescue teams were 15 minutes away. The trapped workers would be dead before help arrived. Then I watched something on the security feeds that changed how I saw humans forever. Taejo's voice grew soft with wonder. The human team leader, a female engineer named Suman, organized the others instantly. They found the leak and used parts of their own equipment to patch it temporarily, but the air was still running out. He paused, remembering. Suman gave her oxygen mask to one of our workers who was struggling to breathe. The other humans did the same. They chose to save our people at the risk of their own lives. The tavern was completely silent now. When the rescue teams finally arrived, all 3 of our workers were alive. 3 of the humans had died from lack of oxygen. Suman was barely alive. Taejo looked at each cadet in turn. I visited her in the medical bay later. I asked her why she had sacrificed herself for our people, the same species that had tried to conquer her world just 10 cycles earlier. He closed his eyes briefly. She said something so simple, yet so profound. Because they have families too. The old veteran took a slow drink. That was when I began to understand the true paradox of humans. The same capacity for empathy that makes them such fierce warriors also allows them to forgive their enemies. They fight with unmatched brutality to protect what they love, but once the fighting ends, that same love extends to former foes. That makes no sense, said Jiwoo, shaking his head. How can the most violent species also be the most forgiving? Because both come from the same source, said Taejo. Humans feel everything more intensely than we do. Their hate is stronger, but so is their compassion. Their fear is deeper, but so is their courage. He gestured to his mechanical arm. 20 cycles after the war, I developed a rare disease that was destroying my replacement arm and spreading to my body. Our doctors could not treat it. I was preparing for death when a human medical team offered an experimental treatment. Taejo flexed his mechanical fingers. They saved my life. The same species I had fought against, whose comrades I had killed, worked day and night to save one old alien soldier. He looked around at the cadets. That is why the peace has lasted 50 cycles, not because humans are weak or forgiving, but because they are practical. They understand that having allies is better than having enemies. Taejo activated his hologram one more time. It showed a massive fleet of ships, some clearly human design, others from the alien empire, and still others from different species altogether. 15 cycles ago, the Vorn Collective attacked the outer colonies of both our empire and human space. They believed that our war had weakened us both. The hologram showed the combined fleet engaging with enemy ships. The Vorn expected an easy victory. Instead, they faced the combined might of humanity and our empire. For the first time, human warriors fought alongside ours. Taejo's voice filled with pride. I commanded a joint strike force, 3 of our cruisers, and 5 human destroyers. We were assigned to defend a mining colony on the edge of Imperial space. The hologram zoomed in to show a fierce battle around a small planet. The Vorn outnumbered us 2-1. In the old days, our Imperial ships would have formed a defensive line and fought until destroyed. But the humans taught us new tactics. The display showed the smaller ships darting between the larger enemy vessels, attacking from unexpected angles. We separated their fleet, isolated their command ships, and destroyed their supply vessels. The humans called it Wolfpack tactics. It was chaotic, unpredictable, everything our military training said not to do. Taijo smiled. We won without losing a single ship. The Vorn retreated and never returned to that sector. He switched off the hologram. After that battle, I finally understood what made humans so effective in war. It wasn't their weapons or their brutality. It was their adaptability. Humans never fight the same way twice. They constantly change, evolve, improve. The old veteran looked at each cadet seriously. That is the lesson you must learn if you wish to be good warriors. Not how to follow orders perfectly or how to maintain perfect formation, but how to think, adapt, and overcome unexpected challenges. Duri raised her hand hesitantly. Commander, you've told us about human warfare and human peace, but you haven't told us about human people. What are they really like? As individuals? Taijo smiled gently at the young cadet. An excellent question. To understand humans as warriors or diplomats, you must first understand them as people. He leaned back in his chair. Humans are contradictions. They can build wonders and destroy them in the same day. They can love deeply and hate fiercely. They create beautiful art and terrible weapons. They can be selfish and selfless, often in the same moment. Taijo's voice grew thoughtful. But most importantly, humans are not all the same. Unlike our species where we are born into our roles, warrior, worker, leader, humans choose their paths. A human born to farmers can become a scientist. A human born to leaders can choose to be an artist. He looked around the tavern at the diverse crowd. This freedom to choose makes them unpredictable. It is why they create such strange and wonderful things. It is also why they are so dangerous when threatened. Because every human has chosen their life, and they will fight with everything they have to protect that choice. Taijo's eyes grew serious. Remember this, young ones. If you ever face humans in battle, you are not fighting soldiers who follow orders. You are fighting individuals who have chosen to stand against you. That makes them more dangerous than any warrior born to fight. He took a final drink. But if you are fortunate enough to have humans as allies, treasure them. For the same passion that makes them terrible enemies makes them loyal friends. The tavern was now completely packed. Word had spread through the station that Commander Taijo was sharing his experiences from the human war. Aliens of all ranks and species stood shoulder to shoulder, listening in respectful silence. Even the station's security chief, a tall, stern female named Yuna, had slipped in quietly to stand at the back. Taijo looked tired now. Telling these stories had drained him, but the eager faces of the cadets urged him to continue. I have told you about human warfare, he said. I have told you about human peace. Now I will tell you about the most important thing, our future with humans. He straightened in his chair, his old warrior's pride showing through his weariness. 10 cycles ago, I was invited to Earth as part of a diplomatic mission. It was my first time seeing the human homeworld up close, not through the targeting systems of a warship. Taijo activated his hologram device one last time. It showed a beautiful blue planet with swirling white clouds. Earth, but peaceful now, not surrounded by warships. Their world is remarkable. They have every type of environment. Frozen lands, burning deserts, vast oceans, thick forests. Humans evolved to survive in all these places. This is why they adapt so quickly to new worlds. The hologram zoomed in to show a large city with tall buildings and green parks. This is New Seoul, where our delegation stayed. 50 cycles earlier, our ships had targeted this city for destruction. Now we were welcomed as honored guests. Taijo's voice filled with wonder. The humans gave us a tour of their world. They showed us their greatest achievements, their art, their technology, their cities. But they also showed us their mistakes. The hologram shifted to show a barren landscape with twisted, melted ruins. This was once a city called Hiroshima. Long before we met humans, they used atomic weapons against each other. The human guide told us this place is preserved as a reminder of war's cost. The cadets stared at the devastated landscape. The humans took us to many such places, battlefields, death camps, ruined cities. Places where humans had inflicted terrible suffering on other humans. They did not hide their shame. They did not pretend these things never happened. Taijo looked at each cadet in turn. This is something our people have never done. We celebrate our victories but hide our mistakes. Humans remember both. They build monuments to their failures so they will not repeat them. He switched the hologram to show a large building with many different alien species entering and exiting. This is the Earth Alliance headquarters, where representatives from 27 species now work together. Humans built it 15 cycles ago after the Vorn War. They invited all spacefaring species to join, even former enemies. Tejo's voice grew stronger. I met with human military leaders there, warriors who had fought against our forces, warriors who had lost friends to our weapons. I expected coldness, perhaps even hatred. He shook his head in wonder. Instead, they treated me as an equal. They asked for my opinions on defense strategies. They invited me to observe their training exercises. They even asked me to speak to their young officers about Imperial battle tactics. The old veteran smiled faintly. One evening, I spoke with a human admiral named Junho. He had commanded ships against us during the war. His family had died when we attacked one of their colonies. By all rights, he should have hated me. Tejo's voice grew soft. We shared drinks in a quiet room overlooking their ocean. I finally asked him how he could sit with me, talk with me, after what our people had done to his family. The tavern was completely silent as everyone waited for his next words. Admiral Junho looked at me for a long time before answering. Then he said, "Because hatred is a luxury the universe cannot afford. We are too few, the darkness is too vast, and the challenges ahead are too great for us to cling to old wounds." Tejo closed his eyes briefly. He told me that humans had spent thousands of years fighting each other over tiny differences, skin color, beliefs, resources. They had nearly destroyed themselves many times. But they had learned slowly and painfully that cooperation brings greater strength than conflict. He looked around at the diverse crowd in the tavern. This is the true lesson humans offer us. Not their skill in war, though that is formidable. Not their diplomacy, though that is impressive. But their understanding that diversity, true diversity of species, of thought, of approach, creates strength. Tejo switched the hologram to show a massive shipyard in space. Vessels of clearly different designs were under construction. 5 cycles ago, long-range sensors detected something approaching our galaxy from deep space, something large moving at incredible speed. Something that does not respond to any communication. The cadets exchanged nervous glances. The humans call it simply the darkness. We don't know if it's a natural phenomenon or an artificial threat. We don't know its intentions or capabilities. We only know it will reach the outer systems within 20 cycles. Tejo's voice grew grave. In response, humans proposed the greatest joint project in galactic history, a combined defense fleet drawing on the technology and warriors of all allied species. The hologram showed ships of various designs flying in, formation, the sleek vessels, of humans alongside the heavier Imperial cruisers and the organic-looking ships of other alien allies. Humans call this Project Lighthouse. Its purpose is not just to defend against this unknown threat, but to show that different species can work together despite their histories. Tejo looked at each cadet seriously. You young warriors will serve in this fleet. You will work alongside humans and other aliens. Your success will depend not on your individual strength or courage, but on your ability to combine your unique talents with theirs. He switched off the hologram. This is why I have told you these stories, not to frighten you about humans, not to impress you with tales of old battles, but to prepare you for the future that awaits. The old veteran leaned forward. Humans have a saying, those who do not learn from history are doomed to repeat it. Our empire nearly destroyed itself by underestimating humans. We saw their technological limitations but missed their greatest strengths, their adaptability, their creativity, their fierce determination. Tejo's voice grew stronger, more commanding, the voice that had once led warriors into battle. You must not make the same mistake with the coming darkness. You must not assume that because you cannot understand something, it is inferior. You must not believe that your way is the only way. He looked around the tavern at the diverse crowd. This station, where different species live and work together, would have been unimaginable before the human war. Our people believed we were destined to rule alone. Humans showed us a better path. Tejo stood slowly, his old body straightening with dignity. I have served the Empire for 90 cycles. I have fought in 17 wars. I have seen wonders and horrors across 100 worlds. And I tell you this with absolute certainty. Our future depends on our ability to work with humans and other species, not against them. The cadets stood as well, showing respect to the old commander. Remember my stories when you join your first ships. Remember that the human officer serving beside you, comes from a species that fought with unmatched brutality when threatened, but also forgave with unmatched grace when offered peace. Taejo looked at each young face. Remember that humans are dangerous. Yes, but they are most dangerous when fighting for others, not just themselves. If you earn their loyalty, there is nothing they will not do to protect you. The old veteran placed his hand over his heart in the traditional warrior's salute. Honor to the Empire, honor to our allies, and honor to the future we will build together. The cadets returned the salute. Around the tavern, other warriors did the same. Even Garo the bartender raised all 6 of his arms in respect. As Taejo prepared to leave, young Duri stepped forward. "Commander," she said hesitantly, "one last question. After everything you've seen, after all the battles and peace talks, what do you think humans truly want? What drives them?" Taejo smiled gently at the young cadet. "Humans have a word that has no exact translation in our language. They call it hope. It is not just a wish for good things. It is a belief that the future can be better than the past and that their actions can make it so." He placed his hand on Duri's shoulder. "That is what drives humans. Not conquest. Not wealth. Not even survival. But hope for themselves, for their children, and now, for all of us." The old commander nodded once more to the crowd and walked slowly toward the door, his mechanical arm gleaming in the tavern's dim light. Behind him, the cadets and other warriors remained standing in silence, thinking about his words and the strange, terrible, wonderful species called humans.